Good evening and welcome to the FITT Show. Financial information for today and tomorrow. I'm Bobby P. Kinzer.
And I'm Thomas Doty.
And we are the FITT Show, helping our people get their finances in shape. It is such a joy to be before you again today, ladies and gentlemen. Thursday, May the 23rd, 2024. This is our 151st show. I'd like to say welcome around the country and around the world. Got a lot of good information for you as usual. And as we always start, I like to open up with our disclaimer that we're not fiduciary. We don't have fiduciary responsibilities. We're not licensed financial investors. We're not investment advisors, but we are educators. We provide you the information. We do not sell products. We do not give specific products for you to buy, but we give you, sort of the generic type of like gold. We don't tell you which gold to buy, which gold stock, which gold dealer to go to. We don't tell you which stocks to buy. We do share our stocks, but we only sharing the information with you. We don't expect for you to do them. We're just telling you what we do. So not taking it as financial advice. The next thing I want to share with you is that please, at all times, click on the button there, the like button, and the heart button. That gives us more exposure, traction. That's how the algorithms work. And also at the same time, we like to make this an interactive show. And how we do that, because we're in a virtual studio, we use the comment box. So if you want to have any comments, opinions on things we talked about, or questions about what we talked about, use the comment box. And if you have ideas and requests for some other type shows, please put that in the comment box. So any issues dealing with finance that you might have came across this week or dealing with, put it in the comment box. We like to share it with everybody, because that's a good thing. So aside, we got the administrative things away. Last week we talked about was gold for you. And we hope you learned a lot about gold, because I know a lot of people have heard about gold before, but didn't understand the different ways that you can invest in gold, hold it physically, or buying it in stocks, or buying it from gold miners, stocks. And I hope you learned a lot about gold, because we say we're just trying to give you advice, alternative ways to invest and to build wealth. But today we're going to be talking about building generational wealth. And this is really, really a good subject, and I'm glad we talked about it, because we talk about building wealth. Generational wealth is the next level. It's the next level of being able to transfer it on, but you got to know how to build it before you can transfer it. So we're going to talk about some good items today. Dote, how you doing today?
I am happy to be alive, my brother.
I am happy to see that you are alive. But you know why, right? Because if I wasn't able to see that you were alive, that means I was dead. So I'm just so happy that you are alive today. So look, you all, let's get into the number one topic at the top of the show. And everybody's always interested how we start this off, though, with the stock market. So what you gonna share with us today? We got some good news.
Well, good news for me, but not good news for the market.
It could be good news for some other people that done some of the things we said.
Well, what happened? There's a couple of things. Some financial data came out that said inflation's not as tame as the Fed would like it. There also was some Federal Reserve minutes that were released that indicated that the Fed would be willing to raise interest rates if things didn't if the market didn't slow down. And some information came out that said the market was a little hotter than expected. So as you can see, for the week, the Dow was down 800 points, but 600 of that happened today in response to, number one, the Fed minutes, and number two, the market data that says things are going a little bit better. And NASDAQ is going to roll.
It got over
Pardon me?
400,000, didn't it?
Yeah, it
It
was
had
up
got-
over 40,000. Yeah, it definitely was. Things were
That's a
going
record.
good. Yeah,
That's a record.
yeah, things were doing fantastic. And as one analyst said, if you don't have Nvidia in your market, this was a very bad day for you. This was actually the worst day for the Dow since March of 2023. So it was an ugly day, and it's all based on those two things I mentioned. Like I said, NASDAQ is pretty flat, and that's mainly because of NVIDIA. But Microsoft has hung strong this week. It's up 6. Tesla's about flat, but still a lot of volatility there. Apple's down 3, but there are some positive signs happening with what Apple's doing in China, which before it was thought that they were losing a lot of market share, but it may not be as bad as they thought. And fortunately, Pfizer is still flat. And again, I'm okay with that because I'm collecting a 6% dividend on that. And then there's my darling. So Rodney, don't get mad at me, but NVIDIA is rolling. It's rolling. It was actually up 112 points at one time today. I think it closed up 88 points. And it's because they announced earnings after closing yesterday. They beat estimate. They had a very positive outlook for the rest of the year. It's been said that their competitors are not close to catching them. So everything is positive there. They also announced a 10-for-1 stock split. So what that means is I currently have 100 shares of NVIDIA at 1,038. After the stock split, I'll have 1,000 shares at $103.80. So it doesn't really change anything, but supposedly when the prices are lower, it makes it a little easier for retail buyers to buy. And not a lot of people want to spend $1,000 on a share of stock. So if you want to buy 100 shares of NVIDIA right now, it'll cost you $100,000. And not everybody has that much money sitting around to buy on one stock. But once it gets down to 103, then you can actually get a lot more people getting into it. And my Google had, it kind of hung tough through all this turmoil. So we'll see how things shake out in the next couple of days. But that inflation thing is not going away. It's still rearing its ugly head. And we're only hoping we can get it behind us and continue to move forward. So things will be volatile for a while. And my gold is still doing okay. I think I told you I put 15 grand in. It's up over worth over 16 grand. So I'm doing okay there. So like I said, NVIDIA makes me smile. Everything else makes me sad.
So dope. You threw a statement out there, and I'd like for you to give clarification about a stock split. I don't want to assume everybody knows, when they say a 2-for-1, a 3-for-1, a 4-for-1 stock split. Can you just give just the basic understanding of that, please? When it stock splits, what it says.
Yeah, this is just, in this case, it's a 10-for-1. So like I mentioned, one share of NVIDIA right now costs $1,038. So if you want to buy one share, that's what it will cost you. So what they're going to do with this stock split, they'll give you 10 shares, and you take that 10 and divide it by the value, and it becomes 103.80. So like I said, I got 100 shares, but after the split, I will have 1,000 shares, but the value will stay the same. My value on my 100 shares is $103,800. When I have 1,000 shares at 103.80, do the math, it's the same, $103,800. So again, they do that at times to make the stock more affordable for retail buyers, so more people have access to it. Like not a lot of people would want to buy 50 or 100 NVIDIA shares right now, and luckily when I bought it, it was at 117. So I spent like 12 grand on a stock that's now worth $100,000. So I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy.
And that's what also the benefit of being in the stock market, because they have stock splits like that. Now, dope. I just want to explain right quick. There's also a reverse stock that would happen to me with a stock. I had 3,000 shares of biotech stock, right? And it wasn't doing well. It was doing pretty bad. and I got in at probably about like $2 a share, right? And I had 3,000 shares. And I had a reverse stock split, and I'm thinking, oh, this is stock split. I'm in the money, and my money went from reverse stock split. They give you less shares, and they decrease the value of the shares.
Yeah, but your total value doesn't change.
The value, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. The value don't change, but you end up with less shares. Excuse me.
Less shares, yeah. And it really doesn't. It really doesn't make a difference. It's an accounting issue, and again,
right.
It makes it easier for retail buyers to go buy 100 shares of NVIDIA, at $1,000. That's a little easier for people to do than to go buy 100 shares at $100,000. So,
but you don't want a reverse stock split because like value stays the same. But now I went from 3,000 shares though to 70.
Yeah, but that again, it makes no difference, Bob. It really doesn't.
But no. But what that is a sign is that they're doing bad because now it went from like $2 a share to something like 50 cents, and that's not a good thing. And that stock ended up dropping off. Became unlisted because it just. So I'm just saying.
Yeah,
you want a stock split like what Dote has, the 10-to-1, 2-to-1.
Yeah, and again, you buy stocks, you have a portfolio, and all of them aren't going to go up 10 times in value, but
right.
Some go up. If you got enough good stocks, some of them are going to hit, and that's what you look for. The guy from Magellan who used to manage Magellan. What the heck was his name? Can't think of his name. But anyway, he always talked about having a 10-bagger. If you have enough diversified stocks, you're going to hit one every now and then. Now, I've been fortunate because I've hit with Microsoft, I've hit with Apple, and I've hit with NVIDIA, and it looks like Google's going to be a winner for me too. So I've kind of been lucky there. And I say, look, there's some skill, but it's also luck because I have nothing to do with it, obviously, other than I try to pick good companies. But if you can pick up one like NVIDIA every now and then, you're going to do okay.
Right. And though just want to let people about my goal, because the physical goal is up. It went over $2,400, man, and I got in at 90. Yeah, 90. No. I'm talking about NXP. I'm sorry. I got in the gold at $1,000, so it's double. And when I thought about it, I had it 8 years. So the rule of 72, where it say like a double and a certain amount. I mean, I've doubled and did pretty well. So somewhere like I made somewhere around about maybe 8-10%, and that's not bad.
Yeah, it's about 9%. 72 divided by 9 years is 8%. 8% a year. That if I could be guaranteed 8% a year, I definitely take that every day of the week.
Over 9 years too.
But it's still only it's an 8% average return. Yeah.
Average return. Correct. Right. I'm sorry. And I'll take that every day of the week.
Right.
And the silver now has also had doubled also. So I just want to let you know on the physical gold side, and we learned a lot about holding physical gold, which you have to sometimes they want to discount it and you got to find a broker that want to buy it, as opposed to if you have gold stock or silver stock, you can just go right to the market and trade it. That was a very key point about commodities that you can hold physically or hold in a stock fund or as a stock. That was very key. So let's get into cryptocurrency, man. Cryptocurrency, the market is up. The total market is up to $2.6 trillion, heading toward $3 trillion, and it's up $203 billion. That's 8%. So something's going on with the cryptocurrency market, and we don't know. We just know that it fluctuates the way it does. And the Bitcoin, the number one cryptocurrency, is still number one cryptocurrency, is at $67,663 per Bitcoin. That means from last week to this week, it grew 2,000 $288 a Bitcoin. And that's actually 3% just in a week. Now, some people think, no, that's not much. We're talking about just in a week. If you get 3% a week, just guess how much you're going to be making. And then Ethereum, the smart contract is up. I don't know what's going on with Ethereum, but it's up 29%, $863 per Ethereum. And then you got Tether, which is the stablecoin tied to the dollar, and it actually went down a penny. It's pretty interesting. But it seems like when the dollar starts going down, cryptocurrency tends to go up. When the value of the dollar is weaker, it seems like currency goes up. It seems like there's almost a direct correlation there. And that's one of the reasons why cryptocurrency was created, to go against the fiat currency, which is the dollar for us in our country. And actually, the Solana is up $18, 11%. Dogecoin moved up again, though, from number 10 to number 9. And it's just up to 16 cents per Dogecoin. So that's it for the cryptocurrency market. Like I said, the market is up. If you're holding, you're doing pretty well. Continue to hold, and you need it, then you just need to cash out if you need it. But just remember, if you cash out, you realize that loss, and you got to report it to Uncle Sam. And that's good, because you can write it off against your taxes next year. So it's not all that bad. So, dope. Let's talk about today's subject, man. Building generational wealth.
And that's something everybody wants to do, man. Everybody wants to have financial success, right? And most people only dream of it and to get out of that living month to month, paycheck to paycheck. And if you do reach that level of success, you can live a comfortable lifestyle, you can splurge periodically without worrying about breaking the bank. But if you want to get to that point, then you got to make sure, you should make sure you can pass that on to your heirs. And that's Bob said in the introduction, that's next level planning. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Ways to help you build that generational wealth without losing it when it transfers to your heirs.
Yeah. Because when it comes to building wealth, growing your net worth is half the battle. Remember, we talked about, it's not about income. It's about net worth, right? But building lasting wealth involves creating a plan for how it will be transferred and passed down to the next generations. Now, there are figures that are shown from the Go Banking Rate show that 70%, though, of wealthy families lose their wealth by the next generation, with 90% losing it the generation after that. Only 33% of Americans have a living will or trust, and 1 in 3 Americans who have no will or living trust claim they don't have enough assets to leave behind. So that's why it's so important. We're talking about building wealth so you can have wealth to transfer generationally. And though there's an old question that we ask in financial education, right? And the question is, why do most Black people don't know who a great-grandfather is? And most people say they don't know. And it's because most great-grandfathers never left them anything. Some of them didn't have anything to leave them, but I guarantee you, if they had left them something, they will have a big picture of great-grandpa Kinzer up on their wall. What a good man. But most of them don't know, and it's just a joke. But in a way, it's true. I don't know my great-grandfather. I know his name. I don't know nothing about him. But this is why today's show is so important, you all, because very few people, everybody knows what generational wealth is, but we want to have a discussion about it. How do you plan for it? How do you actually prepare yourself for generational wealth? So let's start, though, with the basic understanding.
Well, and before we do, there's one disclaimer I want to make sure. This is a financial show. So we talk about financial subjects, but we're not trying to convince anybody that money is the driving force behind everything we do. It's more important than spirituality. It's more important than happiness. No, This is what we're talking about. So this is the subject. So just don't get it twisted that we're saying money is the end all be all. We're not. But this is the subject we're talking about today.
And we also are not saying that money is the root of all evil. But I am saying the love of money is the root of all evil.
Right.
Continue.
Okay, so what is generational wealth? And that refers to when you pass assets from one generation of a family to another. You know, those assets could be cash, could be stock, could be bonds, houses, whatever, you know, real estate. It could be a family business. And generational wealth has become a focal point in discussions about the racial wealth gap because, as Bob mentioned, most of our grandfathers, what's the Temptation song? Didn't leave us nothing but alone. Who was a Rolling Stone? Yeah, that.
Wherever he,
all he left us was alone. But there is a huge racial wealth gap, and it used to be that you didn't have money to pass, but now a lot of us are getting to the point where we do have money to pass along, and so you have to understand the games, the rules, in order to pass it on without losing a lot of it in that transfer.
So we all know the generational wealth, it transfers after death. But the bulk of generational wealth, we know, passed down at death in the form of inheritance. But for most American families, though, inheritances is relatively modest. Between 1995 and 2016, for example, though, more than 55% of inheritance was under $50,000. See, a lot of people think people who are rich is because they got inherited. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. A lot of people are, making money in the stock market, doing things like that. But at the end of the wealth spectrum, only 2% of inheritances exceeded $1 million, while small in number, however, 2% of inheritances accounted for more than 40% of all the money that was passed down. The 55% majority share added up to less than 6%. That means the real wealthy people don't passing it on. But the people below that strata in middle class, they really don't have no assets to really pass on because they're not building the assets what we talk about all the time. It's about acquiring cumulative, assets that appreciate. Now, inheritance is about above a certain amount of tax by the federal government, in some cases by the states, and in the form of an estate tax or inheritance tax. And now, an estate tax is paid by the state, while inheritance tax is borne by the individual heirs. Now, check that out. Most inheritors in the United States fall below the threshold for incurring federal estate taxes, which the 2024 tax law is you can pass up to $13,061,000. So for most people, that's well above. But what people don't know, it used to be way lower than that, though. And tax laws that Donald Trump put in place today, they expire next year. So that's all going to change. And I don't know how that's going to affect inheritance tax. But the federal
it'll be cut in half. January 1st, 2026, that 12 million becomes 6. The 14 million, the 14 million in 2024 becomes half of that, about 7 million in 2026.
Oh, okay. That's So, but that's cutting it down. But the federal government does not impose on an inheritance tax. Now, the state inheritance taxes also affect very few families to begin with, like state inheritance taxes and inheritance taxes begin, and only 12 states plus the District of Columbia have a state tax. That's Connecticut, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and the state of Washington. All of them exempt at least the first 1 million in assets. So that might, a lot of people might be safe there. And some sets exempts considerably higher. Now, 17 states have inheritance tax or estate taxes. Those taxes can vary by income level and their relationship to the deceased. Like money passed from a spouse to spouse is not taxed, where wealthy families have ways to lessen the burden of estate or inheritance tax through trust and other legal means. And we've talked about wills and trusts, why it's important.
Yeah. Now, Bob, you can also transfer wealth while you're living, right?
Right.
Yeah, you can transfer up to 17,000 per person or 34,000 per couple in money or property without incurring any federal gift taxes. So, for example, if you got 4 children, you could give your kids $136,000 in 2023 and 2024 and continue to give in future years. And that exclusion goes up a little bit every year. And so a lot of times that's a good way to help, like with a down payment on a house or just to help get people get started in their life, that you can drop that money on them. And I'm sure a lot of people didn't know that if you gave over that amount, there's actually a tax involved. And so I don't know a lot of people dropping 20 grand on their kids though, but you need to know there is a limit on how much you can give each of your kids.
And so some people would say, "Dope, well, how will they know if I gave this money to my kids?" Well, when your kids go to put it into their bank, and if it's over $10,000, there's something called Bank Secrecy Act, where all 10,000 or more, they automatically report it to the IRS. So that's how they'll know. So don't think you're going to be slick, and get away with not paying Uncle Sam. Now, this is another way though, that I don't think people even think about this, but money that one generation pays from another's is education. Is also a common way of wealth is transferred, like paying a tuition directly to an educational institution. That is exempt from gift taxes. Thank God, because I would be hitting that mark at the University of North Carolina that I'm paying for Melody. I would be paying tax on that, but it is exempt. But you know what's so important though? Room and board and books and other expenses are not. I don't know if people knew that. Also, though, another way to pass on, to transfer wealth, as with tuition, is eligible medical expenses that are paid directly to the provider are excluded from gift tax too. Like I say, Uncle Sam be looking at a lot of places you don't realize. But that's just some information that people need to know, though.
Yeah. And, we mentioned earlier about the generational gap and generational wealth and the wealth gap. And they did a survey a few years ago, the Federal Reserve did. And unsurprisingly, the top 10% of the population, money-wise, holds 74% of the country's wealth. That was shocked the heck out of me when I saw that. While the bottom 50% hold just 2%. That's why you hear a lot of talk about the haves and the have-nots. And the haves are continuing to get richer, and the have-nots are continuing to get poorer. And a 218 analysis by the Fed that the bulk of intergenerational transfers are flowing to families that already have substantial resources, which again is not really surprising, because once you have that base of wealth, you make an effort, or it becomes very important for you to figure out how to keep it. And so it found that nearly 40% of the intergenerational transfers with the households in the top 10% of the population. That's really not a surprise, when you talk about income, but only 20% went to families in the bottom 50%. And so when you think about that, it basically, to sum it up, the rich get richer and the poor stay poor. So they also said that 72% of the wealth held by the wealthiest 10% can be attributed to intergenerational transfers. So that means most of the money they got is passed to them because they figured out, one, how to make it, how to keep it, and then how to pass it on. And so other types of intergenerational wealth transfers can come into play here. Education is highly correlated with both greater earning power and greater wealth. So family, if you could afford to pay for college, then that next generation's college education is going to give them an edge in accumulating more wealth of their own. But nowadays, it takes a lot more than just a college education. And that's hopefully one of the things we do is try to give you some things, little tidbits in order to help you make more, keep more, build more, and a whole bit.
And that's one of the reasons why we talk about it as an investment option, 529 plans. You know, that's another way to help get the education and get a tax write-off and actually build up income to pay for education. So that's generational wealth in the wealth gap. But let's talk about generational wealth and the racial wealth gap. Now, in 2022, the Consumer Finance by the Federal Reserve documents racial disparities in financial well-being in the country. According to the report, which we sort of know, I didn't know it was this big, the average white family have approximately 6 times as much wealth as the average black family, and 5 times the average Hispanic. The Hispanics are gaining on us, though. The median wealth of white families in 2022 was $287,000. For black families, it was $45,000, and no, for Hispanic families, it was $61,000, according to the St. Louis Fed. Now, the large gap between black and white families is a result of historic practices and policies, and we understand that they systematically stripped wealth from black families and facilitated wealth building amongst the white families. Do you know what that statement is saying? You know, that they stripped black families systematically of wealth and facilitated wealth building among white families. A lot of that has to do with education, though. White folks have the education to know what to do with the finances. That's why this show is so important. Now, the report goes on to specifically state that because of continued barriers and intergenerational nature of wealth gap, it is very difficult for individuals or families to overcome the wealth gap.
So how do you build generational wealth? And we've talked about this before. And it often comes through the way we think. It comes through consistent, constant investing in stocks, bonds. You can own real estate, which appreciates. You can start a business, make more money there. And obviously the best way to do it is to combine all of those things and have many different streams of income. And then once you start building, generational wealth, then you have to have smart estate planning to make sure that it isn't diminished through taxes that could otherwise be avoided.
Now, these are some of the things that people need to avoid, and some of the mistakes they make with building wealth, though. Attempting to build wealth all at once. And we talk about this all the time. It takes work and it takes time. Now, when your family doesn't have the wealth, try to do it all at once, like everybody wants these quick schemes or want to put all their money in cryptocurrency because it can run around, so fast. This creates undue pressure and it takes on unnecessary risks by attempting to build all at once. Take your time. It's not a race. It's a journey, and if you build it on time, you will hold up to the craziness of the things that hit you in life, the situations, and think of building the foundation of a property. A solid foundation will sustain the storms, but it's one brick at a time. And though that's one thing that we always repeat, right? Wealth takes time and it takes effort.
Yeah. And another thing that can screw up a plan to build wealth is to have an improper legacy structure. And so a lot of people who build wealth for the first time, okay, first generation wealth builders, they don't have any experience in building a legacy. It's one of those things that they've never done before.
Yep.
So they don't know how to structure their legacies correctly. So you may have young children, something happens to you, and you leave all the money to the children. They don't know how to handle it. They could blow it all. And so all that you built could be lost because you didn't have a trustee, or you didn't set up mechanisms to make sure that all the money isn't used previously and just wasted. So you got to have the right legacy structure if you have young children. Every situation is going to be different, but you got to figure out a way to structure this thing so it can withstand issues that may arise. Okay. And there's all kind of resources out there to help people figure out how they should do it. Obviously, you're going to need a lawyer. A lot of people think a will is all you need, but oftentimes you need a trust to make sure you can get around probate. And each state has their own laws, and so you got to make sure you deal with that. And so building it is one thing, but keeping it and pass it on is definitely a big part. And you got to know how to do it so you don't lose everything you've built.
Yeah, that's that's important, though. And one of the primary causes is unsuccessful outcome lies in the lack of communication and trust. So, not openly communicating. And I mean, I remember growing up, though, at least my mother, and I know a lot of my friends' parents, they didn't share the financial situations with the family. They didn't share what assets they had. They didn't share, if they were leaving anything. But you need to be open and clear communication within the family is a cornerstone of a successful multi-generational wealth transfer. Now, while this may seem basic, it is surprising how many families avoid these conversations. I know them, and discussing your estate and financial plans with your loved one helps align everyone's expectations and ensures they understand your intentions. Sharing the why of your estate is as important as the what, as this approach fosters trust, reduces the potential for disputes, and empowers the next generation to be responsible stewards of the family's wealth.
Yeah, and when you're thinking about family and communicating, it's something that you got to do on a pretty regular basis, having regular family meetings. And if your kids are younger, you do this to help them build that financial knowledge and understanding of what they need to do to build and generate wealth. And everybody in the family can understand what the plans are, what the goals are, while we can spend money on this, but we don't spend money on that. And it just can make for a situation that's a lot easier to if everyone understands what we're trying to do as a family. Okay, and then you can get into your estate planning and your budgets and everything involved with handling your money. And more importantly, your kids can learn how to do those things.
And don't, so with that, I don't know how many families meet to do that.
Yeah, I have to say I didn't a whole lot. I wish I had, but we had enough conversations about money, mostly because I was cheap. So.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think enough families. I know I haven't talked about to my kids. I talked to them about money and personal money management, but I've sat down and talked to them about how we what we plan to do to pass on the assets and what we did with it, and how to manage it once they get it. But not now. This one though may sound be trite or trivial, but creating a family mission statement is what I'm talking about. Some say, oh, wait, that's so foo-foo. But a mission statement is a short summary of what matters most to you as a family, the principles that guide you. Now, creating a mission statement together is a powerful way to reflect upon your values as a family. It gives everyone a clear understanding what you stand for and expect of each other. You know, a shared vision, a clear purpose, values and goals, which we always talk about on this show, though, when it comes to planning, values and goals. Why values? Because value is what's important to you, and that drives your decisions on the decisions that you make to follow your goals. And it provides a roadmap that lays out where you are headed as a family and how you will get there. It provides a clear framework and a set of expectations to follow based upon agreed upon values and beliefs. And though we're going to, bring it throughout this conversation, it's a mindset. Because if you don't prepare your mind and your kids' mind to be developing and building wealth so it can be transferred and passed along, it starts now. It don't start when you get ready to die. It don't start, when you die. It starts now. That's why it's so important to have these conversations and set a clear mission on, where you're trying to go. And I think it would help your kids start thinking about things that they probably don't think about when it comes to building wealth.
And Bob, you got to go past just thinking about it. You've got to get financial education. That's
wow.
Crucial. Your kids have to know how to handle money. They have to be empowered with that knowledge and confidence to handle the money that you're going to leave them or to build their own. And, I hear so many people say, oh, I don't worry about that. I'm not good with money, or I can't handle money. That's a huge mistake, because there's so many decisions that are dependent on knowledge. The right decision is dependent on having knowledge. Something as simple as selling a stock after it's past the 1 year, so you can save on, so you can pay long-term gain taxes instead of ordinary income taxes. I mean, that could be a 20% difference, 22% difference in how much taxes you pay. It's little things like that you have to have knowledge. It has to be part of what you do. You have to know how to handle money. If you have financial literacy, you're going to be better prepared to navigate the complexities of wealth, ensuring a successful and responsible wealth transfer if you're leaving them something, or they have the background and the foundation in order to build their own financial kingdom or financial wealth money,
So, if some of you do not have any kids, right, and you're like, well, why do I need to worry about generational wealth? But if you did well with your money, like we've been talking about on this show, in the next 10 years, you're going to have some money there. And you need to be thinking about discussing with somebody where you're going to leave that money. And it's to think about it now, or you're just going to leave it and it's going to go to your estate and go back to the state or something. So don't just think because you don't have any kids or a relationship, you don't really have no one to leave it to. No. If you got something left, you've done well, been listening to this show, you're going to have something left, and you need to be able to determine where it's going to go. And now is the time to be thinking about that. Now, there's another one thing, though, that people believe that it's a one-time task once you do it. But transferring wealth from one generation to the next can be challenging. Just like we talked about just building wealth, but just transferring wealth. Those statistics where I showed you that 70% do not, the first generation do not pass, then the next generation is 90%. So take time to help your family prepare for what's ahead creates the best chance for success. Financial legacy planning is an ongoing effort, not a one-time task. Embrace the journey. With each step, you'll further solidify your families. You remember that great grandfather? They will be remembering you because of financial legacy, and discover the meaning of true wealth in your family.
Yeah, and I kind of touched on this when I talked about our disclaimer. You got to account for joy, and we understand that. And we don't mean to make it sound like it's all just a grind building wealth. I mean, you don't want to get to the point where you're doing it and you're miserable and it feels like a job. It's really important to look at a lot of the things that you buy in the whole search for joy, and really understand your mindset and realize that I don't know, that purse or that car or that suit might bring you joy for a very limited amount of time compared to the it's not joy you get from building wealth, but it's a security, it's a confidence, it's a anxiety reducer by having wealth. It's a one less thing to worry about. But it can't be that you become obsessed with it and you feel like it becomes all consuming. No, and that so I hope we haven't given you the impression that that's what we're saying. It does take a lot of work. It does take a lot of discipline. It does take time in order to build wealth, but you can do that and still enjoy life. So that's what we're trying to get across to you.
And this show is all about creating wealth. That's what we talk about every day. How to manage your resources so that you can build wealth. But the next level is generational wealth, because me and Dote always said, Dote just turned 70. I turned 67. Soon we're going to be like, 70, 80, and we're going to realize we did all this good work, we got all these assets, all this money, and we don't even need it all. So then what are you going to do with it?
You can't spend it all. You can't.
You can't. I mean, I don't. I don't really have no big wants and stuff. So the bottom line here, you all, is American families can pass wealth from one generation to the next through inheritances and other means, often with no tax implications. Remember, as you get older and in your retirement, the biggest challenge is really managing taxes, right? And that's the name of the game. You want to pay, it'd be good if you could pay no taxes, but nobody can pay no taxes. But the name of the game is to pay as little taxes as possible. And in this game of generational wealth, you can pass on it with no tax implications. You do it right. Now, critics maintain that transfer of generational wealth exacerbates inequality in the United States, creating both a gap between wealthy Americans and the rest of the population, and between white Americans and members of racial majority groups. We always hear about social justice, but we at this show believe in social justice, but with that, we need to start talking about social economic equity, building assets so that you can do legacy, make it a little bit better for your children and your children's children. So don't, you see, I'm getting a little bit fired up about this.
Yeah, and I hope we aren't coming off as preachy. We're just passionate about it, and we both have had some success in it, and we know it's doable. And so we're just trying to get that across to you. So please don't mistake our if we are coming
passion
as it's passion. It's doable. You can do it, but it's again, we always say it's not easy, but you got to have education. You got to know what you're doing. You got to know when you need help. You got to minimize taxes you pay. You got to be willing to invest. There's a whole lot to this, and we're just trying to get this across.
And the kids, the sooner you get it, the sooner you get and get an education and catch up on some of the things you don't know, the easier it does become. But you got to put the work in it. You know, you got to put work in. And so with that dope, let's go to our wrap up, because we talked about a lot of things. But let's give the summary and takeaways for building generational wealth. And I'll start it off. You need to create a legacy strategy, meaning you should need to set some goals, some objectives, like, who do I plan to leave this to? What is my time frame? Gotta have a plan. You need, and we always talk about a financial plan. Why, we hear, and then we talk about a plan, and that's always too. But we now talking about a legacy strategy of passing this on, and not just passing on the assets, but passing on the knowledge on what to do with those assets, how to manage those assets, having the conversations with your kids so they can understand about personal money management and the value of a dollar. And, and legacy strategy is so important.
Yeah, and building wealth is complex. There's so many things you have to be up on as far as investing, taxes, estate planning. It's I always use the example, it's like people with money and people with knowledge are playing tackle. And if you don't know it and you're playing football, you're playing touch, they're playing tackle, because they understand the rules and they're taking advantage of the rules. And if you aren't taking advantage of the rules, you're getting taken advantage of. So building wealth is not simple. It's complex. There's a lot of pieces to it. You have to get the knowledge yourself. Even if you get help, you have to know enough to know if you're getting the right help. So there's no way around building wealth being simple. It's not simple. It's not.
But it gets easier the more you put time in it and learn about it and have the practice, putting it in the practice. We talk about practice of understanding how to do it, though. So education, financial education is a must. And most of y'all who know me, that's why I teach financial education, because that is the key. We only know what you know. You don't even know what you don't know. So it's so important to have the financial education, because like I said earlier, the more you have upfront educational-wise, the more you can have the mindset to look for the things, to have the mindset to develop the values of one of the things that are important to you, to be able to make the proper and sound decisions on your finances. And not just your finances, but your whole life, period. Financial education has been proven to improve also all other types of decisions that you make in life. It helps you become more creative thinking and purposeful thinking. And that's why financial education is a must.
Yeah, and the last thing we want to get across is choosing wealth over things. Building wealth, it's a mindset. It's a long-term view of where you want to end up, and it's not getting sucked in by the marketing of different products, the advertising, the keeping up with the Joneses, or keeping up with this person on Instagram or this person on Facebook. It's choosing wealth over things, over buying things that depreciate, things that wear out, things that require a lot of money to maintain, and things that won't add to your wealth bucket. And that's what we're trying to get you to understand and look at the future, not at the expense of joy. You got to have your joy, but building wealth. It's a mindset. Consider doing that constant, consistent investing. It's not easy, but it can get you there. It truly can.
Well, we'd like to thank everybody who joined us today. And our shout outs go to Oderstein, who was up first on, wishing us a happy Memorial Day. Rodney Madison Sr., the noteexperience.com. Go out there, y'all, check them out. It's an alternative investment holding mortgage notes. Joanne, always great to see you, Joanne. And then my wonderful, all three of my sisters. Though we went to service to see our cousin preach at this little church, held 50 people the other day in Hinesville. And we had the best time, my sisters and my brother as a family. Oh, man, was nothing like it. So thank you for being on, Gloria, Nolia, and the wonderful, the queen of Delta Sigma Theta. Thank you for being on now. We really love you, appreciate you. And a good friend, Pamela Hill. We went to UDC together, though, and graduated. And this was before computers. And Pam, she would type my papers. Because when I taped them, I would be using, you know how they had that correct paper? Man, my stuff was jacked up. So thank you, Pam, for being with them today. And Dope, leaving with my quote of the day. And I've used this one before, but I got to use it today because you brought up the sports analogy. It goes like this. If you think practice is boring, try sitting on the bench. So with that, you all have a good rest of the week. Love, peace, and joy. We'll see you next week at show number 152, Dope. Have a good one, everybody. God bless. And have a great Memorial Day to all those people who served us in the service. We thank you for your service and appreciate you. Have a good evening.